Joining me now is the lead Democratic impeachment manager. It's Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland. Congressman Raskin, welcome to Meet the Press.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So this feels like one of those, the glass, the water glass metaphor. Is it half empty or half full? You got 7 Republicans to convict. Mitch McConnell felt like he used your closing argument to make his repudiation, even though he voted to acquit. So, do you feel like this was a success? Or do you feel like because you failed to convict that you can't look at it any other way than a failure?
Well, I think it was a dramatic success in historical terms. It was the largest impeachment conviction vote in U.S. history. It was by far the most bipartisan majority that's ever assembled in the Senate to convict a president, which has traditionally been a kind of partisan thing in American history. But we got 7 Republicans, and if you look at the 10 Republicans in the House who joined us, it was by far the most bipartisan decision and a complete repudiation of the president's conduct. Now, unfortunately, it didn't reach the 2/3 majority in the Senate. We're explaining this to foreign journalists who can't understand why he wasn't convicted with a 57-43 vote, a 14-vote margin. Well, you need 2/3. But I think that we successfully prosecuted him and convicted him in the court of public opinion and in the court of history. He's obviously a major political problem for the Republican Party, and as long as he's out there attempting to wage war on American constitutional democracy, he's a problem for all of us.
He's showing no remorse with this acquittal. And by what have we done? Have we now given a permission slip to political violence in our everyday politics?
Well, certainly, those 43 Republicans in the Senate shamefully did that. Now, a number of them, including Senator McConnell, are aggressively trying to disentangle themselves from the vote. McConnell went right to the floor to say he was convinced that Donald Trump was morally and physically responsible for this attack. I mean, I would have liked to have had him on the impeachment manager's team based on the way he presented that, except then he went back to the completely counterfeit argument that the Senate couldn't conduct a trial of Trump's impeachment, although he was impeached during his presidency for acts committed in his presidency. And I think we showed to the satisfaction of the country that that was done when the country first started. It was done in the Belknap decision after the Civil War, and there's no problem with it. And yet they decided to hang their hat on that very dubious hook in order to basically cater to Trump and the forces within the party that are still loyal to him in a really cultish and dangerous way.
I want to get to 3 specific what ifs, okay, or backseat driving that people might be doing. Maybe you're doing it to yourself. What if number 1 is this? When it was clear that the trial wasn't going to start until after Joe Biden was inaugurated, was there any thought of taking an extra week, an extra 2 weeks before starting the trial for you to do more investigating?
Well, actually, we did take an extra 2 weeks. It was supposed to start before that. Nobody said to us, nobody on any side, that we didn't make our case. It was absolutely overwhelming and meticulous and comprehensive. I don't think anybody can watch that without coming away saying Donald Trump incited that violent insurrection. He named the date of the rally. He named the time of the rally. It was timed with the counting of the Electoral College votes. He said, stop the steal. And then he basically, fired the cannon of the rally goers that he had gathered right at the Capitol. So, look, when you listen to what McConnell said or what Senator Capito from West Virginia is saying, they're saying, look, the facts were there. They're not disputing that. Okay. They're just saying we don't think that we can prosecute a former president. They would have found some way. You can always slice the bologna real fine to come up with some way to acquit somebody if that's what you want to do. And in fact, that was the whole strategy of our opposition counsel. They were saying, well, you can pick due process, you can pick First Amendment, pick whatever you want. Just pick one reason to let him go. And, and 43 Republicans did.
All right. On witnesses. It seems as if this was a last-minute decision to go ahead and try to call Jamie Herrera Butler. Should you have had a witness plan much sooner that might have included Mike Pence, Kevin McCarthy, Jamie Herrera Butler, Mark Short, people like that?
Okay, well, let's start with Jamie Herrera Beller. She issued her statement the day before. We tried mightily to get in touch with her. We just wanted her to, she could have come and just done an interview. We couldn't get through to her. And so we did seek permission to do it.
Why did you wait? I don't mean to interrupt you.
When we got a vote.
Can I interrupt you on this real quick?
Yeah.
Why?
Please.
Her story was known for weeks. Why did you not try to contact her until the last couple of days?
No, she issued her statement the day before,
right.
And we brought up the resolution right at the time that the resolutions for witnesses were called for according to the Senate resolution. There's no other time we could have done it. That was the moment to do it. We won that vote. We were going to proceed to do it, and then the Republicans stipulated to allow the evidence to come into the record. Now, you ask about some other people who might have gotten up there and lied. We don't know what Kevin McCarthy would have said. I mean, that was her record of what he was telling people. What he told people was that he had called Trump to say, you got to get us out of this. Hell, these people are here. Trump said, it's Antifa. McCarthy said, no, it's not Antifa, Mr. President. It's your people. You got to get us out of here. To which Trump said something like, well, maybe they just care more about the election than you do, i.e., Trump knew exactly what they were doing. He knew that that mob, which he had deployed, was there, occupying people's offices and threatening Congress. So it was there for everybody to see.
Right.
So we could have had 1,000 witnesses, but that could not have overcome the kinds of silly arguments that people like McConnell and Capito are hanging their hats on. They're trying to have it both ways. But
one more of those what ifs: insurrection versus dereliction of duty. And I know you made a pretty compelling argument, I think, in your closing argument about how you couldn't disaggregate them. But if it had been dereliction of duty, it looks like you might have gotten 2 or 3 others.
Remember, these are Republicans who voted to quit in the face of this mountain of unrefuted evidence. We're going to find some reason to do it. So if we had charged dereliction of duty, they would have said, that's not an impeachable offense. You got to deal with that within the military system. The president is not bound by the Code of Universal Military Justice and the Uniform Code of Military Justice and so on. I mean, you can always come up with a lawyer's argument to get to where you want to go. And they did not honestly confront the reality of what happened to America, which was Donald Trump incited a violent mob to attack the Congress of the United States. So you know what? We have no regrets at all. We left it totally out there on the floor of the U.S. Senate, and every senator knew exactly what happened. And just go back and listen to McConnell's speech. Everybody was convinced of the case we put forward. But, as the defense lawyer said, just pick any one of these phony constitutional defenses, and then you can justify it. It could be First Amendment. It could be Bill of Attainder. It could be due process. All of them are nonsense. I thought that I successfully demolished them at the trial. But, there's no reasoning with people who basically are, acting like members of a religious cult, and when they leave office should be selling flowers at Dulles Airport,
Congressman Jamie Raskin, I hope it brings you some solace that many of us are grieving and mourning with you and Sarah and your family. I know it's never going to get easy with that. So with that, sir, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your views with us this morning.
Well, thank you for your kindness, and thank you for having me. And I want everybody to hang tough for democracy. We won on a vote of 57 to 43, although we didn't make it to 2/3. And there are a lot of patriots out there hanging tough for the Constitution.
All right, Congressman Raskin, thank you very much. Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.